Hello and welcome to my guide on the Tombs of Amascut. The Tombs of Amascut is a massive piece of content with a lot to learn and master. I want to keep these videos short and easily consumable, so I'm breaking it up into a 5-part series which will cover each boss independently. This guide is going to be geared for the average player and is really only going to cover information you need to know to get through the boss and raid at a 150 invocation level with friends or on the We Do Raids Discord. If you're looking for top tier tick perfect 18-minute Grandmaster speedruns, then I'm sorry, but this probably isn't the video for you. However, if you're a mom or dad with 23 children who works 83.5 hours a week and goes to school for 7 hours each night and only has 30 minutes per month to enjoy RuneScape, then you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and enjoy RuneWraith's Guide to the Tombs of Amascut. Welcome to part 1 of the Tombs of Amascut guide, and in this section, we're going to cover the requirements, recommended stats, basic gear and inventory, recommended invocations, and the Path of Crondis puzzle and boss, aka Zebak. To raid in the Tombs of Amascut, you need to have completed the quest Beneath Cursed Sands. This is a master level quest, which is a continuation of the desert storyline. You'll need 62 agility, 55 crafting, and 55 firemaking to complete the quest. Once you have the quest done, there are several ways that you can actually get to the Tombs of Amascut. In order from the most efficient to least efficient, you can teleport using the Jaltevas teleport on the Pharaoh's Scepter, which will put you just outside the obelisk near the Tombs of Amascut. You can also teleport via fairy ring code AKP. However, you will need to have 62 agility, but this shouldn't be a problem considering you should have already done the quest, which requires 62 agility anyway. You can use the magic carpet from Shanty Pass to Polonivnich, and then from that desert city, to Sophanim, and then walking southeast. Or finally teleporting to Narda using a desert amulet and then running southwest. For stats, I would recommend at least 85 plus in all of your melee stats and 90 plus range. You should have at least 78 magic to wield a toxic trident. And I am sure it's possible to, and has been done with lower stats. However, some of the boss fights are substantially more difficult. And as always, stats are much more important than gear. So if you're really struggling, take some time at Ammonite Crabs or Nightmare Zone to buff up your skills a bit. It'll help you a lot in the long run. For gear, I'm going to show 3 different setups. The first gear setup is a budget setup based on the We Do Raids Discord suggestions. It uses a fighter torso, obsidian legs, an abyssal dagger, dragon defender, Fury, Fire Cape, Barrow's Gloves, Net's Knot Helm, Berserker Ring, and Dragon Boots. There's a simple 4-way range switch into a Black Dragon Hide Assembler and a Dragon Crossbow for firing Dragon Ruby Bolts E. And I know the blowpipe is like 3 mil, but boy is it useful in this raid. There are so many instances where you need to attack quickly against low defense mobs and boulders, and that's really where the blowpipe shines now. For magic, we have a 5-way switch into Mystics, Occult, Mage Arena 2 Cape, and a Toxic Trident. Now this setup recommends a Book of the Dead for Thralls, and I agree because the DPS increase is really significant in solo 150 invocation raids. However, there are a few scenarios in TOA that benefit from Ice and Blood Barrage, namely the Path of Apemkin or Baba. For learning, I enjoyed using Ancients, however I consistently use Thralls now. For other gear, you should definitely bring the Karis Partisan for Kefri, a Bandos Godsword if you have it, as it helps to drastically speed up the rooms with this defense lowering special attack, and a Dragon Dagger. Don't skip out on the Dragon Dagger since it's extremely useful for the final boss in the raid, and it can really help speed up that room. For potions, bring a couple brews, some super restores, a 1-dose raging potion, a 1-dose super combat potion, and a 2-dose anti-venom potion. I think the setup I described above is really reasonable for the average player. It's maybe a 30 mil investment. However, in this video, I chose to downgrade the setup even further just to show that it is possible even in lower gear. Big asterisk here, provided that you have the right stats. I downgraded the obsidian legs to a dragon skirt and the fighter torso to a rune plate body. I also downgraded the dragon crossbow to a rune crossbow and used runite bolts without any enchanted effects instead of the dragon ruby bolts enchanted. I also downgraded the dragon boots to rune boots, and finally I downgraded my mystics to a Zamorak robe top and bottom for a dirt cheap mage switch. Also, please ignore the Blood Fury here since I don't have a normal Fury in my bank to replace it. Unfortunately, it does proc a few times in some of the clips, and that kind of helps me and heals me, but I did have plenty of brews left by the end of the raid, so don't be afraid to use some of those supplies. The last setup I'd like to show is the gear that I'm currently using, and it's pretty expensive and probably a little out of scope for this video. However, it includes full crystal, the bow of Faradinin, full bandos, and a sanguinesti staff. I also use an Avernic Defender, Netzenot face guard, primordial boots, a light bearer, and Osmumten's Fang. By far the biggest change here is the Karis Partisan of the Sun. Outside of the staff and the Fang, this is one of the best upgrades that you can make for TOA. Its special attack costs 50 prayer points and 75% of your special attack energy, but instantly overheals you up to 20% of your base hit points, cures venom and poison, and restores all of your drain stats. So really, you need far less brews and can simply add a few prayer potions here to compensate and offset that 50 prayer point drain cost of using the Karis' special attack. This thing really comes in handy in a pinch. I don't want to go too deep into invocations because there are just so many ways that you can mix and match them, but my goal for this video is to introduce you to a fairly standard set of invocations that you can expect in most group raids that get you to a raid level of 150. We shoot for a minimum of 150 here because it gives us a reasonable chance at all of the uniques. So now we're going to go and do a brief overview of each invocation, what it does, and why it's enabled. The first invocation is Softcore Run. This limits the amount of times that we can die in the raid to 3. It gives us a nice buffer to die, try again, and still be able to leave the raid without paying 500k. On a diet means you can't eat any food within the raid. This isn't a problem for us since we're using brews and restores. Free points. Likely Larva increases the number of eggs Kefri will spawn from 2 to 4. This really isn't an issue at all since we can pray range and negate all damage from the eggs. Blowing Mud. This invocation targets 2 players with a mud attack. For solos, it's literally free points. For duos plus, it's actually an advantage because it allows players to leverage a strategy that traps Kefri's minions in her own mud, preventing them from attacking players. Not just a head. Zebak will cast blood spells on the player occasionally, which can be completely negated by Protect from Magic. He'll also summon blood spawns, which track the player throughout the arena and will heal Zebak and leech hit points if the player is next to them. This invocation sounds really bad, but I promise handling these 2 mechanics are really a piece of cake, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Arterial Spray. Zebak's blood attacks have increased range and healing. Really this just means standing at least 2 tiles away from any neighboring players to ensure Blood Blitz doesn't do double damage. Blood Thinners. 3 blood spawns are summoned instead of 1. Just dodge them like you normally would. It's really super easy. Gotta Have Faith. Energy blasts from the coffins in Baba's room do damage based on your remaining prayer. This shouldn't be an issue for us since we're going to be killing the monkey minions, which unleash the energy blasts. Jungle Japes. When the monkey minions die, they drop bananas on the ground. Just like in Mario Kart, if you slip on the bananas, you're going to have a bad day. This one isn't hard, but you just need to pay a little extra attention to where you step during Baba's boulder phase. Shaking things up. Baba's slam attack affects a wider area. We'll cover how to minimize this effect in this invocation when we cover Baba in another video. Ancient Haste. During the first phase of the Warden's fight, they charge at a faster rate. This is a tricky one, and we'll discuss some invocation options where you can leave this disabled and still hit that 150 invocation level if you're really struggling with this. Acceleration. In the phase 2 of the Warden's fight, they'll attack faster and the obelisk attacks will come faster. Penetration. If you're hit by an obelisk special attack, it'll be a little bit more punishing and turn off your prayers. This is a tricky one because if you don't realize your prayers have been disabled, you can get KO'd pretty quickly by the Warden's auto attacks. That being said, it's not overly difficult to deal with if you're careful during P2. Overclocked and Overclocked 2. During the Warden's final phase, they'll attack 3 ticks faster with Overclocked 2 on and 1 tick faster with Overclocked 1 on. This should always be on since they are really easy to deal with and basically give free points. So if you're struggling with any of these invocations, specifically Ancient Haste or Acceleration, you can activate Deadly Prayers, which gives 20 points and makes it so that when you take damage, some of your prayer is drained as well. It's really barely noticeable after a while and can be offset by simply bringing an extra restore or prayer potion along with you into the raid. You can also put on Walk for It as a free 10 points if you're consistently clearing the raid in less than 40 minutes. Now onto the raid itself. Each of the 4 bosses within the raid is prefaced by a puzzle room, which must be solved in order to get onto the boss fight itself. Zebak is generally the first room chosen for most raids because players can pre-pot a ranging potion and save an inventory space. My pre-pot routine generally goes like this: ranging potion, super combat, anglerfish, imbued heart.
And this is where I'd put a trophy. If I had one!
refill inventory with another 1-dose super combat, and either another super restore or brew depending on your preference. The Zebak puzzle is simply an agility obstacle which has your player gathering water from various water sources and growing a tree in the center of the room. As soon as you enter the room, run and grab the water jug sitting near the traps. Crocodiles continuously spawn and try to take bites from the tree, but can be frozen and killed easily with magic. The spikes and acid in the room function a little differently from other agility obstacles in the game and will hit your character in odd ways. Luckily, we can take advantage of a strange mechanic where if we start the agility obstacle from one tile back, our character will automatically pass through all of the obstacles. The poison can occasionally hit you depending on the row and the time it spawns, but the other traps will never hit you. And this is important because if you are hit while carrying the water back to the plants, you'll lose half your water. As a solo, you can complete this room in just over 30 seconds. Watch how I click the marked tiles to fill up my jug and avoid all the traps. When returning with the water, I simply click on the tree to make sure to time my run so that the acid doesn't catch up to me or spawn in my row. When you are ready to face Zebak, switch to your melee gear if you're BGSing the boss, else you should be in your range gear. Click on the red portal to start the fight. The fight consists of Zebak attacking you with either magic or ranged attacks. His magic attacks resemble clay pots with a red orb that homes in on your character, while his range attacks are a large boulder which splits into pieces. You can fully negate his attacks by praying the correct prayer. Once you do enough damage, Zebak will use one of his 2 special attacks. His first special attack will throw acid onto the arena and summon 3 massive waves from one side of the arena. Similar to Galvek's fight, position your character in the wave's gap and continue attacking Zebak, if you are in range. It's very easy to be out of range while using a rune or dragon crossbow and get dragged back into the path of an oncoming wave. If this happens, don't panic, but quickly click in the direction of the waves are heading to give yourself some time to react and reposition your character into that wave's gap. Stepping in acid is secondary to avoiding the wave. Zebak's second special attack will throw more acid onto the floor along with 3 boulders. Your task is to use the surrounding jugs to clear the acid and find sanctuary behind the boulders. The boulders have a 3-tile vertical safe zone, meaning the only safe tiles are the 3 adjacent tiles directly south of the border. This is probably the hardest part of the Zebak fight because if you get it wrong, you're gonna be chugging brews at any invocation level. Generally, you should prioritize jugs which are on a diagonal path to the boulders because you can push jugs diagonally into the boulders, which will automatically shatter the jug and is guaranteed to clear at least 1 safe tile for you. Your next best option are jugs which are in a close proximity to the rocks. If they aren't directly in the path of a rock, then you'll have to manually trigger the jug to shatter by shooting it with a ranged weapon. A good rule of thumb is to shoot the jug before it gets near the boulder because it takes time for the arrow to actually reach its target, and then the jug is continually moving as well. You'll get the hang of it after a few Zebak encounters, I promise. In the final phase, Zebak will have to speed up his attacks, so just be prepared to switch your prayers a little faster. If you're using the Invocations, which allows Zebak to use blood magic, you can pray magic to negate his blood blitz. I would advise that if Zebak is actively attacking you with range, you should just tank the blood blitz provided there are no other players around you since the damage is really minimal, especially in 150 level Invocations. When Zebak summons the blood spawns, simply move around to avoid them. If they're tracking you, they die quickly and really aren't much to worry about. Now, fun fact, you can actually move through these just like the Corrupted Gauntlet Tornadoes and Olm's Lightning because of the same principle that they move 1 tile per tick and your character can skip the tile that they are actively moving towards while running. So now I'm going to do a fully commented run of everything that has to do with Zebak, including the puzzle room. So before we start off, we want to have our mage gear on because the crocodiles that spawn are weak to mage, and if we have ancient magics, it's useful to be on our mage gear in order to catch some freezes on them. I'll start off by grabbing the water jug and go to my special square here, and then click all the way back onto the waterfall. You can see we did that perfectly and avoided all of the damage from the acid. I wait here for just a second because you can see a row of acid spawned in my lane, so I just waited for it to pass before I clicked directly on the palm tree to get my first 100 points on the tree. Here you can see I'm waiting again for that acid to like depart, and one of the crocodiles spawns. So I try to kill it, but unfortunately I splash here and the crocodile manages to get a little bite on the tree and does 2 damage. This is unfortunate because now it means we're gonna have to go for a 3rd round of filling our jug up, but that just goes to show, you know, maybe you wanna bring ancient magics into the Zebak room or into the Tombs of Amascut, because a freeze might have stopped that crocodile right in its tracks. So you can see here, I did another pretty good run and got a full jug there. We kill the other crocodile and we need to go and do this one more time and get our last jug fully filled up. So here, I actually go when there is acid in my lane, trying to set a bad example, but I happen to get lucky and skip over the tile that the acid was. Occasionally this can happen, but I think a majority of the time, if you go while there's acid in your lane, it's going to hit you. That being said, sometimes it's more beneficial to just tank the acid and get the jug on the way back. That way you don't have to do a 3rd run for water. So I switch back into my range gear here, head into the arena, and immediately we'll go ahead and attack Zebak. The first thing that I like to do is if you do use thralls to summon a ranged thrall, it does just a little bit of extra damage in the fight. And then I just start getting my protection prayers ready, and he starts out the fight by using ranged. We know that because of the splitting boulders right there. So here Zebak uses a mage attack, and right now I'm just prayer flicking to save some prayer. This isn't really necessary if you don't want to. So he's doing his wave attack, and I don't think I covered this in the video, but the wave attacks will come from different sides. In this case, it comes from the left. The next time he does it, it will come from the right. So just be prepared for that. But you can see I'm making really, really small movements here. I'm not running all over the arena. I'm not going crazy. I'm not getting stuck in the acid, just really small movements to position myself in the gap of the waves and preparing for the next gap to arrive. It's also nice because the waves actually end up cleaning acid. So if you can make it through that first wave, sometimes it gives you more movement opportunities for the 2nd and 3rd waves. So now Zebak is doing his 2nd special attack. Here he's summoned the little boulders that we have to get behind. And you'll notice there's not a good jug in sight. So we're gonna go ahead and push this jug from the far left-hand corner. You can see I shoot it just a little bit early before it gets there. That way it explodes right in front of those boulders. And those 3 tiles you can see behind it are safe because there's no sand attacks right back there. So just like that, we can avoid this attack really, really easily. So just don't panic, remain calm, and get those spaces cleared of acid. So Zebak is doing his 2nd wave attack. Again, during the fight, he'll do 2 wave attacks and then 2 boulder attacks. Here, there's not much else to say about this. We're simply avoiding the waves, and you can see this is a particularly easy wave pattern because we really didn't have any acid to contend with, and all of the waves were pretty much lined up in the center. So I think we only had to move like 1 or 2 tiles to avoid the entire attack. And finally, he's doing his last boulder attack. You can see I stupidly just got hit by that boulder there. No reason for that if you can move out of the way. But luckily we have a nice corner boulder here, so we can just push that directly in and clear some acid spaces up. You can see this back row is, these back 3 tiles are also safe. And I move into the acid, and of course, don't do this, but I'm just trying to prove a point that 3rd tile back behind the boulder is also safe. So make sure that you're considering all of your options when you're trying to line yourself up with those boulders, because you don't always have to clear the spot that's directly next to the boulder. So finally, we're in Zebak's final phase. So his attacks are coming a little bit more frequent, and we're having to dodge some blood spawns here. But we're using the trick where we can just walk through them, and you can see they don't even touch us. They're so easy. And those are just free points in the raid. So that's why I always have that invocation on. At this point, Zebak's done doing all of his special attacks. We just have to make sure that we're maintaining focus on our prayers. And if all goes correctly, you really shouldn't use any supplies in this room. You might be low, but if you can avoid using supplies, it really sets you up well for the other 3 rooms of the raid. Well, that's all the information I wanted to share in this video. In the next episode, we're going to cover the next boss in the Tombs of Amascut, Kefri. Thank you so much for watching, and if you ever want to go on a raid in game, hit me up. My RSN is RuneWraith. Thank you, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as it really helps my channel grow.